All right. In our last video, you were talking about what is Bitcoin, how it is described, how people see it, how it's energy transferred from one person to one company, from through time, through this, without losing any of its power, any of its speed. People are starting to wake up to the idea that there is more to Bitcoin than just, oh, hey, it's kind of like gold, or hey, it's like digital dollars. It is those things, but it is so much more. And companies are starting to realize it. You've been showing clips from Michael Saylor, his company, obviously the big one that we hear about a lot. MicroStrategy. So here's a list of companies that currently hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. MicroStrategy, that's the one we know of right at the very top, but it is starting to become very popular. Now, there are ones like Marathon Digital Holdings. They own Bitcoin miners. That's their business, is mining Bitcoin. So it makes sense that they have some. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of companies that are unaffiliated with crypto or Web3. There's medical companies. There's regular financial companies or traditional financial companies. People are starting to realize that it might be a good idea to diversify and hold a little bit of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And what it's doing is the world is so ready, the investing world is so ready for ways to get a hold of Bitcoin that when these companies announce that they're going to be using some of their reserve cash to purchase Bitcoin, their stock price is going up.
Yeah.
Because they know that, hey, they're not buying another, location. They're not paying their CEO an exorbitant bonus and hoping that he sticks around for a couple more years. They're buying an asset that does not diminish, that does not devalue or it get debased. It's only growing in value. It's only getting more and more powerful. And some of these companies that, MicroStrategies, I mean, it almost hurts to look at when you see that they have 214,000 Bitcoins worth $13 billion. It's like, well, I'll never catch up with that.
He's so far ahead. Of everybody.
Yeah, boy.
But, and he'll tell you as fast as he'll tell anybody, he'll just get some. It doesn't matter whether you can afford, 10 Bitcoins or 100,000 Satoshis, or you know what I mean? Like, just start buying it because it doesn't go down. It's not like you're like, oh, wait for it to dip or wait for this or wait till the US dollar, just start acquiring Bitcoin. There's so many, net holding. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what country that is, but they have 3 Bitcoin. A terrorist. That is not much. I mean, there are private individuals that have 3 Bitcoin, but some of these bigger ones, some of these financial companies, some of these huge scientific technology companies have 20 Bitcoin. And it's like even if they're just testing the waters, we did a video one time talking about like the fire union that bought Bitcoin that decided to start buying into Bitcoin. I don't think they bought a single one, but I think they started investing in there. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that coming up in the next few years because people and organizations are starting to realize not just how good Bitcoin is, but how bad everything else is. We talk about it all the time. And Michael Saylor talks about it all the time. If you buy a nice building, if your company is like, hey, we're doing really good, maybe we ought to invest in some property to kind of stabilize our balance sheet. Then there's upkeep, then there's utilities, then there's taxes, then there's, the potential for a tornado, a hurricane, an earthquake. There's all that stuff where it's a liability. It might go up in value, but it's a liability. And there's big risk with purchasing something physical. And that risk doesn't exist when you purchase something digital like Bitcoin.
Yeah, it makes me think of a couple things. First of all, and Michael Saylor has said it, I think we covered it on a video last week, where Bitcoin is still looked at as turbulent in its ups and downs, but it's really not. And so these businesses are starting to figure that out. The second thing that made me think of is MicroStrategy. The only thing that I can think of comparatively, and this is not right probably in the numbers, but from common knowledge is McDonald's. McDonald's, that, you know, they used to say McDonald's is not in the hamburger business. They're in the real estate business, right? MicroStrategy is in the technology business, but that's quickly not the case. They are in the Bitcoin business, and that's changing everything. And when you understand what all, or you don't even have to understand, when you start to get a big picture of what all Bitcoin as a digital network is, it smooths everything out.
MicroStrategies is like a Berkshire Hathaway. It's like a holding company. Like, yes, we also do computer software, but basically they keep doing these public fundraising. You know, they're trying to get more and more money to just buy Bitcoin. And that's their business, is buy and hold Bitcoin. And now it dwarfs what they make yearly. And they're a very successful computer software business, but it dwarfs what they're doing in computer software.
Yeah, he started out buying Bitcoin because they had $500 million in cash and they did not know what to do with it. They were bleeding cash. And so he went down that long trail of investigating. Well, we could buy more of our stock. We could buy real estate. And they kept, he got the Bitcoin, and that started to open the door. So they were buying it to preserve their cash. And it quickly turned out to be, oh, this is not preserving. We are expanding.
The more you learn about it, the more you're like, oh. And I found this cool. It's called bitcointreasuries.com, and it shows all the public companies that hold Bitcoin. It also shows countries and governments that own Bitcoin. It also shows private companies and ETFs that hold it. They also show the mining companies. It's very interesting to go in there and say, if you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, you don't really hear that much about Bitcoin. Is it really that good of an idea? And then you start going, actually, it seems like everybody except for me is buying some freaking Bitcoin. I mean, whether it's countries or companies, even the ETFs, like now it makes sense. Oh yeah, well, there's Bitcoin spot ETFs, but there are not this many Bitcoin spot ETFs. These are just ETFs, just wealth preservation ETFs that see what Bitcoin is doing, and they own some Bitcoin. There's obviously the all the spot ETFs that have recently came out, but there's a lot of funds that own Bitcoin because they're quickly realizing it is the alpha asset.
Yeah, when you hear people talk about how big money started to buy MicroStrategy stock because they could not legitimize going and buying Bitcoin. This was prior to the ETFs, and they wanted exposure to Bitcoin so freaking bad. They were like, well, we'll buy MicroStrategy stock. They're just flush with Bitcoin.
And that makes sense because the value of Bitcoin goes up, MicroStrategies goes up. Yeah. They don't have to produce any new software. If here, I got a nice little article. If by 2033, each Bitcoin is worth $1 million, whether MicroStrategies makes new software every year between now and then, or whether they do nothing. If the Bitcoin is worth $1 million a coin by 2033, MicroStrategies will be more valuable than probably the next top 3 companies, Microsoft, Apple, whatever it is. Like, if it gets to $1 million by 20, that's what people are starting to realize. And like you said, now there's the ETF. So now companies and individuals have a few other options to kind of get exposure to Bitcoin. But before that, it was like publicly traded companies that put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That was the way to do it. MicroStrategy being the number one. It's every company has the ability to do it. Whether you're a landscaping company or whether you're a Bitcoin mining company. This medical device maker, they just bought 17 million. I think it increased brought their company's stock up 25%, because rather than spending that money in any other way that they could think of, whether it was new material, new hires, new property, they bought Bitcoin and their stock went up 25%. Because people are starting to realize how safe of an asset that is.
And still 8 or 9 out of 10 people are still of the mind frame of is it safe? Is Bitcoin like it's being used for fraud and it's all over the place and it's up and down, it's turbulent. It's like majority of people. So meanwhile, these corporations and and Wall Street, BlackRock's bought $20 billion, worth of Bitcoin for their ET, wow, man, it's just happening as we speak.
I wonder how much, before we end this video, I wonder how much of USA's Bitcoins are purchased by the government or seized in illegal activity.
Supposedly all seized, I think, for the most part, right?
I don't remember. I can't remember reading or hearing about any time USA just bought Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
can you imagine what Bitcoin would do if that happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be awesome. Georgia, look, the state of Georgia. Just kidding. That's the country of Georgia. They have 66, and again, like it's $4 million. That's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket for a country. But if it gets to $1 million a coin in 10 years, that's going to be the best investment that country ever made.